Is it just me, or has MMA just gone crazy again in the last couple of weeks? It's like you had that Kimbo Slice Ken Shamrock fight, and everybody found that to be very controversial. Then you had the whole Jose Aldo pulling out and getting injured, Mendes stepping in, people having debates about whether or not, who's going to win that fight. That big weekend when it happens with Mendes and McGregor and everything that happened there. You had the absolute bloodbath between Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald, which was fantastic to watch and satisfied my bloodlust. Then you had Stephen Wonderboy Thompson with a back kick knocking out Jake Ellenberger, who I can't even say properly. Then on Wednesday, you have the news of Frank Mir, Todd Duffy getting ready to fight. That great little fight for the minute or two that it was got on. It was a completely rock'em sock'em robot brawl, and I love it. What's your flavour today with MMA? And I wanted to see a brawl, and that's what I got. And it was nice to see Frank Mir continue this win streak now. This is his second win in a row after a bit of a dip. But the thing that's really on my mind was a bit of interesting news that was passed on to me yesterday evening as I was coming home. And I thought this was just hearsay and, people talking. And then I looked into it and I found out that actually there is truth behind this story. Fedor Emelianenko, yes, the legendary Fedor, the very polarizing Fedor to a lot of MMA people. And it's not how he is personally, it's how people have presented him. He can be quite polarizing to people in that sense. But the rumor is that Fedor is training for a return and a comeback to MMA. And immediately that got lots of people interested. And I'm not going to lie, my ears just went, book, okay, this is quite interesting. What's going to happen? Is it going to be one of those one and done deals, where they come back for one more fight for the fans and he trains for one more fight and then that's it, he's gone and he kind of gives us a farewell? Is it going to be one of those cases? But then I found out, no. He actually wants to do quite a few fights. He's obviously been in training, but not full camp, 10-week training for fights, but he's been in some training. So he's kind of been in the gym quite a bit, practicing Sambo, doing some basic stuff for the last couple of years. There was even talk of him almost coming back in 2012 to face Brock Lesnar. However, we know what happened, and the backstory there is that apparently his father passed away, and that was a big reason as to why he retired in the first place and why he didn't want to come back for a while. So it was very interesting hearing that, and I know that got a lot of people talking. But he's done this interview and he said he's let his body heal itself up, all the nagging injuries that he's had, and he feels much more ready and capable to come back. And he did say, because he's a religious man, that it would be God's will if he comes back. And it seems to be that he's got that peace of mind and that peace in his spirit to come back to fight now and compete. And this is very, very fascinating news for a number of reasons. Obviously, is it a one and done deal? Is he going to come back and have hand-picked opponents? Because I know a lot of people felt like that towards the end, and I somewhat felt like that towards the end. Is he going to go to Bellator? Because obviously you look at it like this. He's already worked with Scott Coker before. He's already had that kind of business relationship with Scott Coker before. There was never bad words or bad blood between them. And it could be one of those better the devil you know than better the devil you don't. So going with Bellator, who have a lot of money in terms of Viacom and are basically the American Pride 2.0 with their recent productions and are in need of names and talent and things, he would be a perfect fit for what Bellator are doing right now. But then I know there's going to be a lot of backlash from fans and maybe even fighters, because the one thing with Fedor, and I'm going to make a pro wrestling analogy, Fedor is like Sting of WCW. He was the big legend from the other promotion, the big star from the other promotion, but the one thing that us fans never got to see till many, many years later is that legend going to the other side, to the now big time promotion, to what people consider the modern day major leagues in the WWF. We never got to see that happen in the late 90s when it was close to happening, in the Attitude Era, in the Monday Night War era. We never got to see that. We never got to see that in the 2000s when it was rumoured that he would go when WCW went over. We never got to see it, but it was very special that if he ever goes there, it would truly mean something. And in the same way, if Fedor ever went to the UFC, that would mean something to a lot of people. It has this specialness, this uniqueness, this sight. There's something you've never seen before, and it happens, and it's very unique and special. And that in itself is why I think fans would be very peeved if he didn't go to the UFC. And then obviously people are going to say, oh, well, who's he going to fight in Bellator? Which is the other argument. If he signs with the UFC, who will he fight and where will he fight? That's the other question. Will he fight as a heavyweight? Will he fight as a light heavyweight? Because a lot of fans feel that he should have gone down a weight class. I personally think... I would love to see him and Anderson Silva. I think they could do that. I would love to see him and, Daniel Cormier. That would be fascinating to watch. I would love to see him and John Jones. And I remember 3 years ago, us guys on this channel talking about the possibility of Fedor versus John Jones happening. And you never know, that could happen. Maybe it's a fantasy, maybe it isn't. But that's a possibility. What else? What about the story of a man that has come out of retirement, wins a fight, and eventually works his way back to the big rematch with Fabricio Verdum? That would be a hell of a story. That would be a hell of a fight to watch. And of course, we all know what happened. I think everybody remembers where they were when Fedor lost for the first time in like 30-something fights. Everybody remembers that day. Everybody remembers that fight. I really regret not being in San Jose in that arena for that fight, because the atmosphere is something I would love to have soaked in. Just seeing Fedor and Verdum come out and then that happening. What a night that was, and a night I will never forget as an MMA fan. And a lot of people felt that there was a bit of a dip there. He was the best heavyweight, I just want to clarify. He was the best heavyweight in the world for a number of years. I felt that when he was the Pride champion, he was the guy. He was the heavyweight champion of the world, unequivocally, no argument against him. Because in my opinion, at that time, all the best heavyweights in the world were in Pride. They were not necessarily in the UFC. You had a couple of good heavyweights in the UFC, but the big time was Pride. It's like this, if you want me to give you an idea of what it was like back then. Pride was what the UFC is now, and the UFC is what Bellator is right now. So if you win the Bellator heavyweight title, great, you've won it, but it doesn't mean as much in comparison to winning the UFC heavyweight title. And at that time, with that environment and that current climate, Fedor was the best guy in the world. And then things changed, obviously, when Pride got bought out and then all the heavyweights came over. And then obviously guys like Cain Velasquez and Brock Lesnar and Junior Dos Santos all kind of came up, and Shane Carwin came up. And then you had Alistair Overeem have a career rejuvenation under suspicious reasons. And then you had Frank Mir kind of rejuvenate himself. And then the UFC started to have the best heavyweight division in the world. And there was very scarce amount of top competition for Fedor outside of that. And that's where I think things started to kind of go, down a bit and down a bit and down a bit. There were some good heavyweights, but the best heavyweights were not there anymore. And I think that was part of the problem. And also, given the man's personal life, I think when you have things as serious like a loved one that's ill in the way his dad was, and other things going on in your household, you can't really put all your focus into full-time fighting and training, and you kind of do lose that result. I know what that feels like personally. That's why I had to take a step back, and now I'm starting to come back into my chosen career. Because things like that take your resolve for a while, and you need to take a step back, and you need to regroup, and you need to recharge. So I really do understand that. But I hope, in short, that Fedor does go to the UFC. I would love to see him come there. I would love to see him fight their heavyweights and their light heavyweights. But of course, there's going to be that controversy about what his management are going to want versus what the UFC wants. And we always know that that's always been an issue. But I take hope in the fact that he almost agreed to come back, if not for, his, dad passing away. So maybe things have improved on that scale. But I'll tell you what, it's going to lead to some very interesting times right now. I'm sure we're going to get some very fascinating Dana White interviews out of this. And yeah, very, very excited. And I'm going to stop right there. You let me know what you think. McGregor, if you're watching this, you let me know how you feel. Holla Black, if you're on here, let me know how you feel. Ecstasy, you let me know how you feel. If you've met me for the first time, it's nice to meet you. I need a cup of tea right now. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button, share it, tell a friend, tell a neighbour, tell the postman, tell the Jehovah's Witnesses down the road, and let me know how you feel. Guys, take care, peace, and goodbye.